with AIU. It's always a pleasure to be with you all. And as the introduction so eloquently stated, we are going to be kind of exploring this key component of Montessori philosophy and pedagogy known as global citizenship. But before we dive into that, I'd like to take just a few moments to share a few details about me as the host and the creator of this presentation for those new people who are with us for the first class today. So my name is Heather White. I'm a former Montessori classroom teacher, administrator, and in-home caregiver with more than 15 years of experience in the world of Montessori. I now work as an educational coach. I work in multiple roles with the Center for Guided Montessori Studies, including their alumni conference and webinar coordinator, as well as their professional development coordinator. I'm also an instructional guide working with adult learners who are receiving their Montessori certification. I recently began as a professor at Sarasota University, which offers degrees in Montessori studies. And I'm also a blog writer and content creator for a few different Montessori organizations, such as the American Montessori Society, Guide and Grow, and Miro's Toys. I hold certifications myself from the American Montessori Society at the 3 to 6 and 6 to 9 age groups, as well as experience with the 0 to 3 and 9 to 12 populations as well. I have a master's in education with a concentration in Montessori studies and an education specialist degree in school psychology. I'm also a nationally certified school psychologist. So just a little preview during our time together today, we're going to start by discussing what global citizenship is. And then we'll take a look at how global citizenship is nurtured in a Montessori classroom with a look at how it shows up a little bit differently for different age students. Then we'll explore what we can do as adults to foster global citizenship with children. And we'll close with a conversation about why it's important to promote global citizenship. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to pop them in the chat if they're related to the topic that we're talking about. And then I did save plenty of time because I know there's usually lots of questions. I save plenty of time at the end as well for things that might come up. So let's go ahead and get started. For those of you that are back for a second or third or fourth class, you'll know that I like to start with a quote. I think that it helps kind of focus our presentation and provide some inspiration for us as we continue to learn more. So here's a quote by Maria Montessori. She said, "We must revise our concepts, our attitudes, our educational systems, if we wish to help man to become more cultured, more disciplined, more open to abstract ideas. If our aim is indeed to help him grow, to become a citizen of the world." So that's kind of what we're thinking about today is how can we use education, as Dr. Montessori said, as a weapon for peace. I know that the word weapon might not be the best as far as the connotations that are associated with it today, but this idea that in educating children, right, and whether that's as a teacher or an administrator or a parent, and the work that we do with children, how can we help provide them with these skills to become more compassionate human beings, to understand the world around them, their place within it, and how to really be this compassionate, caring person that we all hope our children will grow up to become. Maria Montessori never swerved from one of her main messages, which was the need for a radical transformation in education to ultimately improve society as a whole. Her vision for peace and humanity was very clear. Through education, through the education of our children, we could bring them up as what she called citizens of the world. As someone who lived and worked through 2 world wars and witnessed firsthand lots of horrors that were unleashed by human beings who were unable to cooperate peacefully, Dr. Maria Montessori recognized that it was only when children were intentionally taught global citizenship, respect for diversity, and personal responsibility that they were able to start to begin to change the way that they understood themselves and each other. which empowered them to change our society and the world for generations to come. So then what is global citizenship? Global citizenship is a central tenet of Montessori education. It's the idea that all human beings are a part of a growing world community. It centers on the idea of making choices that contribute to make the world a better place. Global citizenship nurtures respect and tolerance for others, allowing students to really develop an appreciation for diversity, a sense of empathy, and also an openness and acceptance. So it really is not only this awareness of the diversity that exists in our world, but it's embracing that diversity. It's this acknowledgement, this awareness, but then going a step further to this sense of embracing and empathizing with others who might be different from oneself. It's this open mind and open heart, if you will, to all the different people of the world. So, from a young age, Dr. Montessori thought that each child should begin to understand that they are individuals who are a part of this larger human species. They're a member of society, and on a much larger scale, a citizen of the world, right? That's where the idea of global citizenship came from. And by nurturing a child's awareness of the world in this way, Dr. Montessori believed that children were able to begin to develop a universal understanding and appreciation of all life on Earth. In her book, To Educate the Human Potential, she said, since it has been seen to be necessary to give so much to the child, let us give him a vision of the whole universe. The universe is an imposing reality and an answer to all questions. Dr. Montessori's visionary idea was based on the observations that she had of children's eagerness to really understand themselves, the world, and also how they fit into it, where their place in the world was. Montessori education helps children to develop these skills to become independent, functioning members of an emerging world community and to really help build that community for future generations. In a Montessori classroom, children learn to start to envision the world with a higher sense of awareness that we were talking about, right? This acknowledgement that diversity exists and embracing that diversity. They start to learn to form global connections with one another, both inside and outside of the classroom space. In Montessori classrooms, the teachers, known as guides, nurture this sense of world awareness through age appropriate demonstrations that really highlight the connections between the classroom environment, the local community, and the global community. Children learn to actively recognize, acknowledge, and celebrate the cultural and spiritual diversity of all people. And it's through this knowledge and reverence that they begin to understand what it is that unites us all as human beings. So they start to see not only the diversity, right? What makes us different, but they start to be able to recognize what makes us all the same, what makes each and every one of us a global citizen and what unites us. And they start to embrace that and champion it, sharing that knowledge and that celebration with others in their classroom community and their local community and in their global community. And it's in that way that Dr. Montessori's ideas of nurturing global citizenship in the classroom really starts to expand to make the world a better place. So then let's take a look at what this looks like on a closer scale, right? We talked about these broad ideas, but what do we do in the classroom to really foster global citizenship? What are the actions or the lessons, if you will, that help children understand global citizenship, to embrace and celebrate diversity? In the early childhood classroom, so in that regard, in the Montessori world, another way of describing it is the primary classroom, the children's house. Some people call it casa, after Dr. Montessori's original Casa dei Bambini. But this is the classroom for 3 to 6 year olds. So what you typically envision as pre-K, K1 and pre-K2 and the kindergarten years. So 3 to 6 year olds is what we're talking about here. And it's through a well-developed history and geography curriculum that an awareness of the world is nurtured in these spaces. And then this is what allows children to really develop that universal understanding and appreciation of all life on Earth. Children read books, listen to music, view artifacts, and learn about cultures from all over the world in really relevant, meaningful ways. Children start to understand how their actions impact others in their classroom community through what we call basic grace and courtesy lessons. So if you were here several classes ago, we touched on grace and courtesy. And this is the idea, you might think of it as social skills or manners, but there are these very explicit lessons that help children learn how to behave in polite, respectful ways and how to engage with others respectfully. So concepts as simple as learning to put away an activity when it's finished so that another child can use it after you are what help children start to understand and really internalize social norms. Classroom teachers regularly model these polite behaviors for children, and then they begin to replicate it. Dr. Montessori talked about this age as the time of the absorbent mind. And what she meant by that is everything that the child sees around them, they soak up like sponges. So when the teachers are modeling these behaviors, maybe something like holding the door open for someone or greeting someone that walks into a space, saying hello, introducing yourself, just by hearing and seeing the teachers or the older students in the classroom engaging in these behaviors and in these ways of communicating, the younger children begin to do the same because they're soaking it up, absorbing it through that absorbent mind. And it's through these simple daily interactions that children begin to learn how to show kindness to others, i.e., that global idea of global citizenship, right? They're learning how to get along with others, how to be a kind, compassionate member of society. It looks a little different when we get to the elementary age classroom. So when I say elementary age, we're talking about first through sixth grade. So children that are roughly 6 to 12 years old. Dr. Maria Montessori explains that children encounter what she called sensitive periods or these sensibilities. And we talked about those in a previous class as well. But these sensitive periods or sensibilities are times when they have this heightened ability to master a skill or obtain specific knowledge. And during these elementary years, she said that they had this heightened ability or this sensibility to absorb elements of culture. She really thought that they had this intense interest in things like justice and moral judgment, social relationships, a sense of history and time, a sense of human culture and membership in the human family, and also a sense of how the world works. So we can harness all of those intense interests, right? We can start to take advantage of all of these sensibilities that the elementary age child has, that they're so eager to learn about the world, its culture, and the people that live within it, and really start to present tons of lessons, provide tons of exposure for children at this age of what global citizenship is, what the world looks like, what its people look like in different places around the world, and what their culture is, and really start to celebrate. So in the elementary classroom, students dive really deeply into lessons that demonstrate the connectedness of all living things. There is a presentation of what Dr. Montessori called the great lessons or the 5 great lessons. And these are bold, exciting stories that start with the whole, right? The idea of the universe, and then work towards the parts. So they gradually kind of shift their focus smaller and smaller, looking at individual cultures, individual life forms, individual times throughout history. And this is an interesting difference between the early childhood age level and the elementary age level. In early childhood, children ages 3 to 6, in that first plane of development, 0 to 6 years old, children are very egocentric. They're really focused on me, right? They want everything to relate to themselves. And so in the early childhood environment, we start with the child. So there's a lesson, for instance, that's called My Place in the Universe. And it shows the child's school, right? Their neighborhood or the city that they live in. And then it goes to perhaps the county or the state or the country, depending on what those types of divisions look like in the area where the child lives. And then it goes further than that to the continent. And then it goes to um, right? It looks at the Earth, and then it shows that we're in the Milky Way galaxy. So it gives them this understanding from closest proximity to the child to the farthest away. And then elementary kind of flips that ideal. And we start from the large and hone in to the child's local and regional environment surrounding them. So these great lessons, the very first one, known as the first great lesson, it kind of looks at what we often refer to as the Big Bang, right? So, how the universe came to be. And it's this experiential lesson that the children are really so enthralled with. The lights are turned off, the room's made cold to kind of set the stage. It's really a really intimate, engaging storytelling experience. And these great lessons go on from there. The second great lesson is about the coming of life. So, how life started to exist on Earth. And it goes through the very beginning, first stages of life, all the way up to what life on Earth looks like today. And it talks about things like ice ages and volcanic eruptions, all of these different things that have impacted life on Earth since it began. The third great lesson is the coming of humans. So when humans started to exist on Earth and what that progression has looked like. So all of that to say that the great lessons are really the embodiment of how this idea of global citizenship begins in an elementary classroom. We start with these really engaging, enlightening stories, and then build from there. That's how we start to introduce things that we call like the fundamental needs of humans, which would be things that unite us, our physical needs and our spiritual needs for any human being living on this planet. And then we break that down by society and by culture, right? Here are the fundamental needs of the ancient Mayans. Here are the fundamental needs of people that live in North America. Here are the fundamental needs of people who maybe live in a very cold space, right? Because their physical needs might be different. So we look at how human beings are different and also what unites us, how we're the same across space and across time. And by doing so, we're really kind of taking advantage of the elementary child's sensitive period, their sensibility for things like a sense of history and time, sense of human culture and membership in the human family, and a sense of how the world works. So we're building that interest so that they can then dive deeper and explore topics that are interesting, particularly interesting to them personally. Just checking the chat here. I see it says a really nice class and presentation. When we were in a hardship remote working areas with NGO staffs together, we always said, think globally, act locally. Yes, I love that. So it's making a difference in your local environment. And we'll talk about that in just a minute and what that looks like in a Montessori classroom as well. But making a difference in your neighborhood or in your city, but then thinking about how that makes a difference to the world as a whole. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So then what can we do as adults to promote global citizenship? The first thing that we can do is help to foster a child's independence, build their confidence, and develop their critical thinking. Because as they begin to manage their own needs, they start to become more able to help care for the needs of other people as well. So the more direct experience and practice that a child has, the more they start to become and regard themselves as capable and empowered beings who know that they have this capacity to change the world for better. So the first is very simple, right? Provide them opportunities to start to do things for themselves and help them become confident in their abilities and in their critical thinking abilities so that they are empowered to then start to make a difference and do things for others as well. The next is to give opportunities for responsibility. So you can start to set very reasonable expectations for children and trust in them that they will fulfill those responsibilities without a constant control or involvement from us as the adults. When they fail, instead of punishing them, welcome that as a learning opportunity. Let them experience natural consequences and the impacts of their actions and practice making amends when they need to do so. So we're trusting that they will clean up after they have played with their toys, right? Or if we're in a classroom setting, that they'll put a work away after they finished it so that the next child can get it. And what that means by welcoming it as a learning opportunity when they don't, instead of redirecting that child in the classroom and saying, oh, don't forget to put your work away, wait until another child wants to use that work and then say, oh, well, it looks like it's still out on a rug. Do you know who might have been using it before? And without giving them the answer, we're prompting, going back to the first thing, we're prompting that critical thinking where this child is now approaching the other and saying and asking, could you put your work back on the shelf so that I can use it? And instead of giving them the answer and taking away that learning experience, we allow it to happen very organically or naturally. That's where the word natural consequence arises from. We're allowing it to happen very naturally, which then makes such a larger impact on the child. Think, for instance, if they're in the home, or it could be in a classroom setting, and they're carrying something with carrying a tray with something that's glass on it, right? And they're not carrying it with two hands. They're carrying it with one hand and they're looking all around. It's our instinct as an adult to jump in and say, oh, carry it with two hands. You're going to drop that. It's going to break. And if we just allow it to happen, as challenging as it might be for us, and we just let the child experience, right? Let them drop the tray, let the glass break. As long as you're keeping them safe, right? That's when we step in as the adult and we say, oh, everyone pause, everyone freeze. We need to clean up the glass. But that experience of dropping the tray and the glass shattering is going to create a much more powerful impact on that child than us stepping in and rescuing them and preventing that from happening. So give them those opportunities for responsibility and let those learning moments occur naturally. The next is opening opportunities for service and for philanthropy. So establish this expectation from a very young age of how to be kind and how to help others through charity and service work. This might be something as simple as going on a walk and picking up trash. It might be recycling or composting. It might be something like writing a card, a handmade card, right? Making a card for a neighbor who's not feeling well or a family that welcomed a new baby. It could be something like donating toys. So if you have in the classroom setting, this might be there's an excess of materials, you're getting ready to get rid of them. In the home setting, it could be, going through and getting rid of clothing or toys that a child has outgrown. Involve them in that process of getting things together, taking them somewhere that you'll donate them, whether that's another family or to a local facility. Involve them in that process, help them understand what it means to be kind and to help others. For older children, this could expands, right? And this could be different community service projects that they initiate. In our elementary classroom, there were a few young girls who loved animals. They were obsessed with animals, and they through this embodiment of global citizenship, right, came to me as the teacher at that time and said that they wanted to do something to help other animals in their environment, other than the animals that they had at home, their pets. And so I said, walk them through the process, help them develop that critical thinking. Well, what might that look like? What do animals need? How can we help them? And they developed a few different things during the course of that school year and the 3 years that they were in my class, because Montessori has multi-age classrooms, things like operating a drive at the school where families brought in pet food and towels and blankets that they donated to local animal shelters and rescues. They also did a neighborhood cleanup where they picked up trash because they had done a lot of research to show the damage of animals, wild animals eating trash, right? A beach cleanup where they went and cleaned up the beach because of the impact that they had researched of trash on the beaches and how that goes into the oceans and impacts ocean life. So really finding ways for children that are age appropriate that they can embrace this idea of giving back to others, other people, and also the world around them. The next idea, a way that we can support the idea of global citizenship is bringing children out into the world, giving them opportunities to interact with others and with their environment. Take trips with them. Maybe just go on a walk around where you live and let them, take everything in. Don't be their guide. Let them be the guide. Pause when they want to, look at the ants on the sidewalk for 30 minutes, or when they want to compare different rocks or different leaves. Really let them lead the way. Look through different books and stories together. If it's somewhere that you're not able to visit, maybe you can do a virtual trip. There's so many now post-COVID, right? There's so many wonderful ways that you can look at other places around the world. There's live cameras set up in various locations, or virtual tours, and really let them explore new places and develop new perspectives so that they gain an awareness and appreciation of the many wonderful, amazing people and places that exist on our planet. The next opportunity to foster global citizenship is to find time and energy for beauty, wonder, and love. And what I mean by this is find ways that you and the children that you either work with as an educator or your own children, that you both can find ways to genuinely care for and protect something. And because with that idea, we can help children understand that in order to show care for others or to show care for the world that we live in, we first and foremost have to genuinely love it and have this appreciation for it in order to show that care and protection. So share with children things that you find wonderful or things that you find beautiful and awe-inspiring, and then help them find the beauty in the world around them as well. There's so many beautiful, wonderful things around us that we won't ever be able to see them all in any of our lifetimes, right? But there's an opportunity that we can share that with children. So again, whether it's visiting it in person and experiencing it in person, or whether it is a virtual opportunity, right? A virtual experience, we can really allow children to see the beauty of the world that we live in. So with all of that being said, of what global citizenship looks like in the classroom at different ages, how we can inspire and promote global citizenship, I think the big question is why, right? What's the importance? Why would we spend all of this time helping children develop this awareness and appreciation and this idea, embrace this idea of global citizenship? So according to Dr. Maria Montessori, as human beings, we have a moral responsibility, something she referred to as a cosmic task. It intertwines with her idea of cosmic education, which is really just an education of what the world is like. We have this cosmic task as human beings to protect humankind and to protect the world in which we live. So nurturing this core value of global citizenship is really meant to prepare children to successfully handle any issues that arise in the modern world in really peaceful ways, so that they're protecting their fellow human beings and they're protecting the world in which we live, nature itself, right? I wanted to share one last thing with you here before we look at some resources and wrap things up with a quote and open it up for questions. This is a staple in many Montessori classrooms around the world, and it's called Pledge to the Earth. And this is by a very inspirational Montessori, and I encourage you to look her up if you haven't. Her name is Eileen, Aline Wolf. I'll pop that in the chat as well so that everyone has it. Sadly, Eileen Wolf recently passed away, but she has done some incredible work in the world of Montessori, particularly related to the idea of peace. And a lot of that ties into this idea of global citizenship that we've been talking about. So this is called the Pledge to the Earth. It's a recited verse that many students say almost on a daily basis in Montessori classrooms all around the world. And it really is just a beautiful encapsulation of the idea of global citizenship. So I'm going to read it to you because I think it really is powerful to just hear it spoken. And if you get the chance, there are some videos available online as well that you can search and find of children reciting it or even singing it. And it's so beautiful to hear as well. So it says, I pledge allegiance to the earth and to all life that it nourishes, all growing things, all species of animals, and all races of people. I promise to protect all life on our planet, to live in harmony with nature, and to share our resources justly, so that all people can live with dignity and good health and in peace. So if you're interested in learning more about global citizenship, I encourage you to check out these two resources. And I apologize that the picture's a little cut off here. In the book, you can see most of it, but the article is just kind of a little snapshot, if you will. But the first resource is the book here, which is by Dr. Maria Montessori. It's called Citizen of the World. It's actually a collection of key readings from Dr. Montessori and includes essential lectures and articles that she wrote during the last 25 years of her life. Many of them discuss the implications of the discoveries that she made over her lifetime for moral and social life. So again, it's that idea of how to be a global citizen, right? Or citizen of the world. The second is a research article that's from the Netherlands entitled Montessori's Perspective on Citizenship Education. And in this article, the researchers synthesized more than 500 different citations in Dr. Montessori's writings that all pertain to global citizenship or citizenship education. And based on the author's analysis, they identified 7 key themes that seem to characterize Dr. Maria Montessori's view on global citizenship or citizenship education, which were 1, common citizenship goal, preparation for independent thinking and action, image of the future citizen, adapted and critical citizens, humanity for harmony, knowledge as a prerequisite, personality development as a goal, and an ever expanding worldview. So this is kind of a culmination of all that Dr. Maria Montessori wrote about global citizenship in one kind of condensed article. And they identified what those 7 overarching themes were. I wanted to end our time together today with another quote, and then we will open it up for questions for the last 15 to 20 minutes or so. So Dr. Maria Montessori also once said, if taught in the right way, the child reveals wonders, and I assure you that a new world will come from the revelations of the youth of the day and not from leaders of today. Maria Montessori believed so much in the power that children held to help create a better, more beautiful, brighter tomorrow, that she also reminded us within the child lies the fate of the future. And I think this is just such a powerful idea to end on, that although we might be the ones making change right now or leading children as adults, they really hold the power for changing the world. And it's our role, it's our duty, right? If we go back to what Dr. Maria Montessori said, it's our cosmic task as adults to help prepare children to do all of the things we talked about, right? Instill responsibility in them, help them understand the world around them, give them opportunities to go out and experience the world and its beauty and embrace that, find ways to show kindness to others. It's our role, our cosmic task to do that for children so that they can then make the world a better place for future generations. So without further ado, we'll open it up for questions. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Before I do so, I do have my contact information shared here on the screen. I'll leave that up for a few moments as we're going through some questions. If you have any follow-up questions that we don't get a chance to cover today, please feel free to email me. My email address is there, or connect with me on LinkedIn. And I would also love for all of you to check out my new website. It's listed there as well. And to follow along on my social media accounts. My handle is @montessori.matters. And I share Montessori and other parenting and education related content there that hopefully you will find helpful.
That is really awesome. Very interesting presentation, Professor Heather White. It is so enticing, so pleasing, so encouraging to hear you talk in so many interesting details about Montessori education. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this wonderful presentation by Professor Heather White. In a global summary, we could say uh, it is so good to hear about global citizenship within the Montessori education model, which is about to connect the classroom with local communities and the global community so that we all end up participating in making the world a better place. It is time now, ladies and gentlemen, for your questions. Whether you want to raise your hand and let us know that you want to ask a question, which Professor White will gladly address. Or maybe you, if you're shy, I don't know, you might prefer to have the questions on the chat box. But either way, you will get the answers from the presenters. As a matter of fact, let's say if we run out of time and you don't ask your questions during this present session, Professor Heather White is kind enough to not only put all her contact information, including her email address on the screen right now, but she also said you may contact her thereafter and ask your questions. You are lucky, ladies and gentlemen, that you are present during this session of the AIU live class series. And again, this is your time to ask questions, and we are definitely ready for you. As we are waiting for hands up, Professor White, let me ask a question of my own. Being a teacher myself, it is so attracting to hear about those ideas related to the Montessori education model that before we go to Samuel McNeil, as a matter of fact, let me put my question aside. I'll ask mine later on, and we're going straight to Samuel McNeil for your question. Go ahead, Samuel, as your microphone right now is unmuted. We're listening to you, brother.
Thank you, Dr. Racine, and thank you, Professor, for this wonderful information for us. We are learning a lot, especially for me, being involved with children over the years. This is a very good stuff for me, and I feel like what a privilege to have this information here. But I have a challenge with where we live here.
Mm.
The approach of uh, developing the children here, I think this is excellent. I feel that that's what we should all do around the globe. But somehow our cultural way, the way we're approaching the children, even the children themselves, somehow within them, that really doesn't, when you are very gentle like this, it doesn't work. They keep on pressing you more and more. Let me just give you an example. I have raised 30 children, 25 biological, I saw 25 biological children, 25 adopted children.
Mm.
And the ages from 2 to 5, others up to 7. So I had so many challenges, and I wish I knew I had this lesson before. Now, every time when I wanted to do something, to help them to do something, or to give them a task, if I'm too gentle, they won't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I have to apply some kind of force to the point that others I used to have some naughty corners. And sometimes I used to have something like, you are going to clean the whole house for things like that. But I felt like it was working. And you find that the child is being modified, the behavior of the child is being modified to the way I wanted the children to be. And then you find the child become part and parcel of the group or the family. Now, with this, I have seen it's not only me who is doing this. Even many other African countries, we use after all, we even quote the Bible to say, don't spare the rod from your child. So how are you going to help us on this so that at least we can have this very gentle approach and still achieve the objective of how we want these children to be? Maybe not how we want them to be, but how the children are meant to be. Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
great
yes.
question.
Thank you.
I think that the first idea, as you were talking, that came to mind that's often so misunderstood about Montessori philosophy is this idea of the freedom that comes in Montessori, and also this idea of following the child. That's a term that's often used. And two important things to know with those terms is people left off the second part of the quote that Dr. Montessori said. So Dr. Montessori actually said, follow the child, but as his leader. So we're following the child, right? We're meeting their needs, but we're still the one who's in charge. We're setting the parameters. We're the one that is observing the child's needs and preparing things. So we're still the one that holds the responsibility, or that holds the ultimate final power, if you will, right? But we're finding ways to give some of that freedom, some of those powers, some of that choice to children. So that's the first idea. That second idea of the freedom that exists, because a lot of times Montessori is seen as just kind of a free-for-all, right? And I know kind of that goes along with a little bit of what you're saying of just this very gentle kind of letting them do whatever they want, letting the child do whatever they want kind of idea. But Dr. Marie Montessori talked about freedom within limits. So not just open freedom, but freedom within limits. So for instance, let's say that you are asking the child to clean up their mess, right? Because I know you said one of the things might be that you have to say they have to clean up the whole house. So let's just say they were playing with something, or they had a meal and they just need to clean up what the mess that they made, right? And you've asked them, or you've said to them, clean up your plate. and they don't listen. They just, something happens and then they walk away and they leave. So one of the things that can be really helpful is from that very beginning, and this is how you can embrace that more gentle approach, right? But still setting the limits instead of giving them a directive. Because what happens then, think about how we feel when someone does that to us as an adult. If someone just says to you, clean up your plate, you're like, oh, that didn't feel so great, right? Like it just felt like you were kind of, even if they're not shouting, it kind of feels like they're just like barking orders at you. So instead, if you say something like, it looks like you're all done, what should you do with your plate? You're still leading them to clean up, but in a way that, and sometimes that doesn't work, right? Sometimes they do need a little bit more, which I think is kind of the root of what you're asking as well. We often offer choices in Montessori because it goes back to letting children know you trust them, giving them some of that independence and some of that sense of responsibility and building their confidence that they're capable. So you could ask something like, do you want to put away your bowl or your cup first? And then if they don't choose, you can say, it looks like you're having a hard time choosing. Why don't you put away your cup and then come back and get your bowl? And if there's situations where safety is at risk or something just needs to be done then you can say, you're having a hard time choosing, so I'm going to choose for you. Or if they're in danger, right? If they're in a situation, let's say a glass broke in the house and you've asked them to freeze so that you can clean it up and they're not listening, then you can move their body, right? You're still the adult. You can say, you're not being safe. I'm going to move your body because it's my job to keep you safe. So even though you're using some kind of force, right, that might not be considered gentle by moving their body, you're still doing so because you're looking out for their best interest. And the gentle piece of it, right, or the respect that you're showing the child is by telling them what you're doing while you're doing it. You're telling them you weren't being safe. It's my job to keep you safe. I'm going to move your body. And you're saying that as you're moving them somewhere else. So hopefully that helps, just kind of a few ideas related to what you were asking.
Very, very practical response, Professor White. I know you cannot talk for the whole world, but hearing you about the Montessori model of education kinds of convinces us that you are a good person, so to speak. I'm thinking this way because of a question that just popped up on the chat box from Dr. Sidney. And this is what the question is. It is an amazing concept of teaching, but why is it that the world is not embracing this philosophy to live in peace and harmony all over the world? Can you answer that, Professor White?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
They really should, right? I think
They
we all
should, yes.
could use a lesson from Maria Montessori on this topic.
Yes.
So I'm going to share a title of a book that Dr. Montessori wrote that kind of covers this. And I have a question here in my chat box as well. So Maria Montessori wrote a book entitled Education and Peace. And it talks a little bit about this, but ultimately I think what it comes down to is when and she covers a little bit of this, is when I think it boils down to this idea of when we start to only look out for ourselves and what our needs and wants and how we protect ourselves outweighs the way that we see and start to validate the way that someone else feels, someone else's needs, someone else's wants. You can think about it with a lot of topics, unfortunately, in the world that we live in today, not even just country to country, but think about, from one person to another. I know politics is a big topic, right? Politics, religion, these are all really big topics that kind of divide us as human beings. And it goes back, if we go back to the very beginning of the presentation when what Dr. Montessori was saying, it's about having this open-mindedness this acknowledgement, even if someone might think or feel differently than you, or behave differently, dress differently, eat differently. It's this awareness, this acknowledgement, and this appreciation, and almost this celebration, right? That
Yes.
you do things differently than me, or you think differently from me. And that's beautiful, because we do have things that are the same. We do feel the same on some things. We do have these same fundamental needs that make us all humans. But the differences that we have are what make the world such a diverse, beautiful place. So if we could understand that it's okay to have differences, and just kind of agree to disagree, if you will, right? And say, well, Samuel feels that way about this, and Dr. Fernando feels this way about this, and I feel this way, and that's fine. I don't need to try to convince Samuel to think what I think about everything, or to encourage Dr. Fernando to eat what I eat or dress how I dress, because we're all different, and that's okay. And I think that's what it really comes down to, is that mindset, that open-mindedness, which is what global citizenship, from Dr. Montessori's perspective, really focuses on at the core with young children, is being open and appreciative and embracing of others, whether they're the same or different than you.
Very, very clear. We love that.
I have a couple questions here, I
Yes.
think, that were just sent to me privately. The
Okay.
first says, does it mean that a global citizen is a person who has many country visas, or a person who thinks globally or thinks positively to the people around the world, or thinking a respectful manner of every nation or nationality without discrimination? Yeah, so it's not, it really doesn't have anything to do with the visa or being able to travel to different places, right? Then it is
Yeah.
those second ideas that you mentioned. It's this embracing, this thinking positively, like you were saying, about people from all over the world, and this respect that we're showing. That's that celebration, right? We're embracing everyone from all over the world, and then the world itself, right? Because part of being a global citizen is not just the awareness and appreciation of the diversity of human beings, but the world, the natural landscapes, the other living things, right? Plants and animals, and just having this deep appreciation and respect for the world in which we live and our place within it as human beings.